For episode 39, in the case of Monkey and Other Mutants, he's about to learn a harsh lesson that when you do a favor for someone, you expect to return it, or to make a promise with someone and then learn to keep it. Well, the story begins in the Black Pyramid's tomb chamber. The story begins in the Black Pyramid's tomb chamber, and with Monkey and Other Mutants, he went to see Mumm-ra. When Monkian tried to call his name twice but nothing happened, he at first found it weird that the tomb was empty. But then Murmur's voice says, "I'm over here," and he finally appears out of nowhere. So, Monkian wanted to know from Mumm-ra what is going on, why has he been summoned? Well, to answer that question, Mumm-ra just told Monkian, "You dream of power. Am I wrong?" Then Mumm-ra asked Monkian a question. "What if I told you I can give you this kind of power?" he said. So, to demonstrate what Mumm-ra did is that he shows Monkian the view of the earth, in his cauldron, of course. Then Mumm-ra said, "Here's what you do. You take the northern part of the third earth itself," he said. "But first of all," Mumm-ra said, "I have a favor for you. Give me the sword that has the Eye of Thunder in it, and you can have everything that you want," he said. So Monkian was more than happy to do a favor, but he said there's only one problem. How's he going to get the sword with the Eye of Thunder and to take it from the Thundercats? "Use these," Mumm-ra said. "This will help a lot. Those are power spears," he explains. Now you can tell that Monkian was completely in awe. He's never seen spears that had so much power before, so he went over to get a closer look. So when Monkian told Mumm-ra to hand them over, but Mumm-ra says, "Not so fast. There's a catch," he said. He says, "As anyone knows, every power has its price," he said. "Are you ready to pay for that price for power?" he asked. Well, Monkian not only tells Mumm-ra that yes, he will, but he says in his case that power is worth anything to me, he said. So Mumm-ra asked him, "Are you sure?" Then Monkian says, "Well, if these spears work, I'll pay for anything," he said. "So we have a bargain then," Mumm-ra says. "Yes, anything, just give them to me," Monkian said. So after that bargain was exchanged, that's when Monkian heads off to Cat's lair. So while after he arrived, but what Monkian doesn't even realize that behind him were Chitara and Panthera the Thundercats. So what Panthera and Chitara did is that they surprised him. So Panthera went first to ask a question. "What are you doing here?" "What's it to you?" Monkian replied. Next thing you know, both Monkian and Panthera are starting having a battle with each other. So Panthro goes first to go one-on-one with Monkey and other mutants, and it went on and on and on and on and on. So after Chitara takes her turn, Panthro goes round two with Monkeyan. But unfortunately, after Panthro lost him in the trees, what he doesn't realize is that Monkeyan threw one of those power spears at Panthro, so he was encased in it. So then when Chitara saw what had happened, but unfortunately, bad news for Chitara, she too gets encased in the spear, just like what Panthro did. Back with Monkian, now that he had captured two Thundercats so far in the fire spheres, he has five left to catch, so he goes to the cat's lair. But before he could arrive, he heard a voice saying, "Hold it right there. It's Tigra of the Thundercats." And now it's his turn to go one-on-one with Monkey and the other mutants. So, Tigra of the Thundercats went first to attack Monkian, but thanks to those power spheres that Mumm-ra gave him earlier, which Tigra had no idea about. So what Monkian did was that he changed himself into a crossbow to attack back. So the battle between Monkian and Tigra went on and on and on and on and on. Well, luckily for Tiger, he dodges every Monkian's attack. So when he makes himself invisible, just like what any good guy would do, and so both of the weapons, whip and crossbow, continued to attack each other, and it went on and on and on and on and on. Long story short, as the battle continues to happen outside, watching it happen on screen were Wily Kid and Wily Cat, and they're upstairs in the weapons room. So while that happened, back outside, the battle between Tigra the Thundercats and Monkian the Mutants continued to go on and on and on and on and on. But unfortunately, long story short, there's bad news. Tiger was trapped in the spear just like what the two Thundercats did. So he became the third Thundercat to be the victim. So now there's four to go. Long story short, back with Monkey, and he's now inside of Cat's lair, but this time upstairs in the weapons room. And that's when, by surprise, that's when the kittens go one-on-one with him. So what the Thunderkins did is that they pulled out their ropes first, but Monkian had pleaded a case to mock them. So what he did is that using one of the power spheres, he created a rope. So when their ropes are launched, his did too, and so the kittens are all tied up. So after tying up the Thunder Kittens, Monkian disappears. Then, once he reappears, he's now in a sword chamber. So what he did is that he took the Sword of Omens with the Eye of Thundera in it, and that belongs to Lino. But Monkian doesn't even notice that he's not alone because he looked over his shoulder and that's when he saw Lino and with him is Snarf. And Lino pleaded his case to say that that sword belongs to the Thundercats and he called his sword to him just like what any good guy would do. So he did and the sword went right into his hand. So Monkian, being the bad guy that he is, he uses one of the power spheres as a shield. So when Lionel went to attack, no such luck. It didn't harm Monkian in any way. Snarf and Lionel found it very weird. So Lionel continues his battle with Monkian. But when Monkian was about to use the power from his shield, that's when Snarf panicked and told him, "Watch out!" But luckily for Lionel, he grabs his claw shield instead. So that's a smart move on his part. So back with Lionel, he was about to use the claw line on Monkian, but then he misses, and so he and Monkian continue to battle on and on and on and on and on in a sword chamber. Then, long story short, before Lionel can make his move to attack, that's when Monkian disappeared. Now, both he and Snarf found it very weird. So Snarf asked him, "Where did he go?" "I don't know, Snarf." And so they both left the sword chamber. So back with Snarf and Lionel, they went upstairs to find the Thunderkins all tied up. So Lionel went ahead to untie Wily Cat and then asked what happened. Well, Wily Cat explained that he and his sister had been tied up thanks to Monkey and the mutants. So after Lionel unties the Thunder Kittens, that's when Wily Kid went further to explain to Lionel that what's weird about it is that he has some strange new powers that they had no idea about, and that it was Lionel until that very moment. Wily Kid also said that Monkey is somewhere in Kessler, but she had no idea where he is. But wait, Wily Kid caught something on the screen because outside there's Monkey appearing out of nowhere outside of Kessler. After Lionel saw what happened on the screen, Snarf asked the question, what's he up to this time? And then Lionel had a thought. He had one of those power spears. Now remember, those are the exact same spears that Mumm-ra gave him earlier. So, when Lionel looked at Wily Cat, he told him to seal up the layer right away. So he did. So all of the doors and windows are closed. After all the layers, windows, and doors are closed, that's when he looked at Lionel to ask him, "What are we going to do now?" "Now all we have to do is wait," Lionel said. Well, back with Monkian, who was still outside of the lair, what he did was unbelievable. With one of the power spheres, he grew bigger and bigger and bigger until he was twice his size. Then what Monkian did next was unbelievable. He decided to go towards Cat's lair, now bigger in size, inside the weapons room. That's when Lionel told the kittens to go prepare for battle, and so they did. Back with Monkian, who's still outside of the lair, he climbs up the lair. So back with Monkey, and now he's climbed up the ladder. What he did next was unbelievable. He punched his hand through the eye of the lair itself and tries to catch Lino and Snarf, but they dodged his every move. So long story short, good news for Lino and Snarf, they made it out of the weapons room. But the problem is, Monkey and Sin still keeps coming even after they've made it out. Well, good news for Lionel and Snarf, they made it outside of the lair, but on top of it. The hair part of it, of course. And that's when, just like what any good guy would do, Lionel goes one-on-one with Monkian, but only twice his size. But unfortunately for Lionel and Snarf, they stood no chance against the giant-sized Monkian, so Monkian swiped them off the top of the lair. If things couldn't get any worse now that Lionel and Snarf are in the water, quick swim for it, Lionel said. I don't think I'm gonna make it, Snarf said. Well, he was proven right when back with Monkian, now twice his size. What he did is that he scooped up the water that has Lionel and Snarf. Now they've both been captured thanks to Monkian. Later, back at the Black Pyramid, well, Lionel and Snarf are unconscious at the moment. So in the tomb chamber, that's when Mumm-ra congratulated Monkian on the job well done, and for once he didn't mess up. So Mumm-ra seems impressed and says, "You brought me the Eye of Thundera. Impressive," he said. So after Mumm-ra pleaded a case with Monkian that he gets the reward, that's when Lionel woke up and saw what he was, and that's when he's face to face with Mumm-ra. "Welcome to the pyramid," Mumm-ra said. So what Mumm-ra did next is what any bad guy would do. He uses his powers to levitate both Lionel and Snarf and flung them right against the wall. Then, after that, he said, "Well, as for the Sword of Omens, it'll go with me in my sarcophagus," he said. Poor Lionel was horrified at this tragic events, and he just couldn't do a thing about it as Mumm-ra heads to his sarcophagus. Things are looking bad. That was until by surprise when Lionel broke free, Monkey and was in shock. Then what Lionel did next is that he freed Snarf. So now both of them are freed. So it's two against one. But before that could happen, what Lionel did next is that he goes to the sarcophagus to get his sword back. But Monkey wouldn't allow it. So back with Monkian, who pleaded his case to say that the sword belongs to Mumm-ra, but then, aha, Lionel has a plan to bluff Monkian. So what does he do? He does what any good guy would do. So he says to Monkian, "Listen, I don't think that northern section of Third Earth is enough for you," he said. "But here's what you'll do," Lionel said. "If you can defeat Mumm-ra, then you can have all of the Earth for yourself," he said. Then Monkian thought about what Lionel said and decided to go along with it. So Monkian turned to Mumm-ra, who's in the sarcophagus, and says, "Hey, Mumm-ra, either you surrender Third Earth to me or you can fight against me," he said. "What's your decision?" So when the sarcophagus opened, you know what this means. Mumm-ra was very upset with Monkey and then asked the question, "You dare to challenge me?" So guess what Mumm-ra did? He did what any bad guy would do, transform himself into his monstrous form, of course. So what Mumm-ra did next is that after he was finished transforming, he attacks Monkian first, but then Monkian attacks back with those power spheres that he gave him, of course, he being Mumm-ra. But what neither Monkian nor Mumm-ra knew, that as anyone would tell you, that it was all part of Lionel's plan, and it seems to be working. So now all Lionel has to do is just get his sword back, while the bad guys are distracted. So back with both Monkian and Mumm-ra continued to battle each other, magically speaking, of course. Back with Lionel, he went to the sarcophagus, and good news, he got his sword back. Well, back with Monkian, he finally defeats Mumm-ra, just like what Lionel said. He knew that what Lionel said was true. So after that, Monkian said, "At last, the entire Third Earth is mine." Well, that and the Sword of Omens, but Monkian had no idea that just moments ago Lionel took his own sword back, but he was unaware of it. But then by surprise, it's Lionel who told Monkian, "Not so fast. because when Monkian looked over his shoulder, Lionel not only gets his own sword back, but then it's Lionel's turn to attack. So Monkian and Lionel have battled each other. And as for Snurf, he's on one of the statues. And he just covered his eyes and he dreaded with fear and he says, "Oh no." And then things looked even more bad when Monkian disarms Lionel. Back with Lionel, he again was horrified to see that the sword of Omens is once again in Monkian's hand instead of his own. So, when Monkian had pleaded his case to say that he now rules the earth and etc. Remember one of the power spheres that Monkian had? What he did is that he charges it up. Back with Snurf, who's on top of the statue, he runs over to Lionel and jumped into his arms. Yes, for the Thundercats, this is bad news and a terrible scenario. But by surprise, Monkey saw the statues of the ancient spirits of evil glow. Then by surprise, Monkey just heard the voice of Mumm-ra saying, "Remember our little bargain. Every power has its price." "I'm not afraid of that little bargain of yours," Monkey said when it's his turn to plead his case. Both Lionel and Snurf are very shocked. They were not prepared for what they're about to hear. So when back with Monkian, he asked Mumm-ra a question of what was the price was for those powers that he'd been given. Well, Mumm-ra just let slip the Monkian to say you may rule the earth, but unfortunately you can never see it because unfortunately you're going to be stuck in my pyramid, he said. So yes, unfortunately for Monkey, and he should have realized right then that that's the price he paid for all that power he had been given thanks to Mumm-ra. So what Mumm-ra did is that he made those stone walls come up. But Monkey says I'll turn that to dust, so thanks to those power spheres, he broke one set of walls. But then another set grew back. Well, back with Monkey, and he just realized that now that the second set of walls had come back, he did what he normally did with the first set. So that second set was destroyed. But then the walls grew back again for the third time. Oh, by the way, Monkian still has Lionel's sword. So now Monkian's now all upset. He's telling Mumm-ra to get me out of here. "I'm sorry," Mumm-ra said, "but you made a bargain, remember?" he said. Then Monkian has his turn to plead a case with Mumm-ra to say, "I'll give you anything that you wanted, etc." Then Mumm-ra says, "Really? A bribe?" So Mumm-ra again pleads his case with Monkian that you made a bargain with me and etc. And then he says that you're my prisoner forever, he said. So even though we didn't see it, but it is confirmed that the sword was thrown down on the ground thanks to Monkian. Then Monkian continues to plead a case with Mumm-ra to say, "I'll give up everything, the power and everything else." When back with Lionel, he now has a chance to get his sword back again. So Mumm-ra agrees to take back Monkian's bargain and said, "So be it." So, you know what this means. Monkian's back down to his normal size. The stone walls are no longer there. So back with Snarf, he told Lionel, "Now, Lionel, now." So that means it's now Lionel's chance to get his sword back after Mumm-ra had pleaded his case to say that that sword still belongs to him being Mumm-ra, but not so fast. Lionel, good news, got his sword back for the second time. So you know what he did? He did what any good guy would do. Summon the Thundercat signal from his sword, of course. So once that happens, back with Panther and Chitara, they're now free from the Spear's prisons. But they're not the only ones. Let's not forget Tigra. He also broke free. So yes, it's true. Three of the Thundercats are no longer prisoners. So you know what this means. Now in the third tank, Chitara, Panther, and Tigra are now on their way to the Black Pyramid. But in the meantime, Lionel and Monkian are still in the Pyramid's tomb chamber. So after Monkian had pleaded his case with Lionel to say he's not finished yet, so they decided to go one on one with each other. Round three of the fight, of course. But thinking quickly, that's when Lionel uses his sword on him first and then told Monkian that his reign was over. And next thing you know, Monkian had dodged every Lionel's sword's attacks. So long story short, after Monkian ran off, that's when Mumm-ra has his turn to plead a case with Lionel to say, Monkian's a coward, but I'm not. So what Mumm-ra did is that he uses his power to disarm Lionel. But luckily for Snarf, he catches the sword with his tail. So thanks to Snarf's tail, the sword went back to Lionel, and as for Mumm-ra, he uses his attack on Snarf, but then Snarf dodges it. So long story short, back with Snarf, he runs back to Lionel. So Mumm-ra did the exact same things they did to Monkian, used a pillar of walls. But Lionel decided to use the sword's power against them. But by surprise, the walls that were broken went back together again. Then Mumm-ra had pleaded his case with Lionel to say that the sword will be his and etc. So instead of breaking the walls, what Lionel and Snarf did is that they climbed on top of them instead. Then what Mumm-ra did next was unbelievable. He lowered the pillar of walls. Luckily for Lionel and Snarf, they landed on the ground. So Lionel and Mumm-ra went one-on-one with each other. Then Snarf, has a plan. After that minor setback, so what he did, he went over to the sarcophagus and then he grabs Lionel's claw shield. Well, long story short, back with the Thunder Tank that just left the lair moments ago, it had finally arrived at the Black Pyramid. So by the time that the Thunder Tank had arrived at the Black Pyramid, there's only one problem. How did it gonna get in? Well, leave it to Panthro. He found a way. So after the tank went in, that's when Monkian was on his way out, but then he jumped to the ceiling as the Thunder Tank went inside. He was on his way out. Monkian, that is. Back with the Thunder Tank, it had joined up with Lionel in the Tomb Chamber. Well, back with Snarf, well, good news for him, he got Lionel's Claw Shield. So, you know what this means. Now that the Thundercats had arrived, Mumm-ra was in shock. Back with Mumm-ra, by the time he made his move, everybody went out of the tank. I forgot to mention that not only were Tigra, Chitara, and Panthro in the tank, but so were the Thunder Kittens. But now that everybody's out of the tank, they all go against Mumm-ra. Well, back with Mumm-ra, he was about to transform to his monstrous form again for the second time, but this time the Thunderkins have a plan. So instead of Mumm-ra being transformed, he got his hands all tied up. So back with Snarf, who has Lionel's claw shield, he throws it at Lionel and says, Here, catch! And so Lionel did. So now that Lionel's claw shield is on his arm, so what Lionel did next is that thanks to his claw shield, Mumm-ra dreaded his own reflection. So Mumm-ra knew he had been defeated thanks to his own reflection. So what he did is that he went back to his own reflection. Oh, and as for Monkian, unfortunately for him, his plan almost worked until it backfired on him. Now that Mumm-ra had told him about the price of his own power. So you know what this means. Once again, the Thundercats saved the day. So before everyone can leave the pyramid, that's when Chitara suggested to drive the Thunder Tank home back to Cat's Lair, and Lionel agrees. Now that's the kind of bargain that the Thundercats liked. So everybody returned to the Cat's Lair after leaving the pyramid. So meanwhile, back at Cat's Lair and at the Sword Chamber, that's when Snarf went first to plead his case to say that was a close one. Otherwise, as Lionel says in his case, it would have been the last. But nevertheless, the Code of Thundera of truth, justice, honor, and loyalty will always prevail. Well, Wiley Kid, although she agrees with Lionel, but then asks the question of what would have happened had the Sword of Omens had been in Monkian's hands to begin with. Well, according to her brother, he said that Monkian would have ruled Thurder forever. I wouldn't count on that, Tiger says, although he agrees with Wiley Cat. Well, as Tiger says in his case, that most of the creatures of Third Earth will be destined for power, and then most of them that are not. Well, even though Panther agrees with Tigra, then pleads his case. And to coin a phrase, he says, well, Monkian tries to make a bargain with the sword, but he just couldn't cut it. So you know what this means? That means, yes, it's true. Monkian would have ruled had it not been for the Thundercats who prevailed it from happening. So who knows what happens next? And that ends episode 39.